We are in the heart of summer. It is hot outside, and things are about to heat up in the market because Q2 earnings are about to kick off, starting with the big banks, followed by the Mag 7, and I'm going to make sure that you're prepared for these massive reports because they are going to dictate the direction of where the market is headed. Are you ready to get prepared? Let's go. Happy summer, everyone. Jeremy Ritz here. Courage pays better than fear trading. I hope you had a phenomenal 4th of July with your family. I got to spend quality time with my kids, my wife, and some good friends out on the beach. Got to go out on the sandbar and was just a phenomenal time. And I hope all of you had the same wonderful experience, whatever it is that you did, whether you were barbecuing out in the backyard, playing horseshoes, who knows? I hope it was a great time. But now it's time to get focused, get serious. We have Q2 earnings coming up, and really it's going to start with the big banks. That's really what's going to provide movement in the markets. And so in this video, what I want to go over with you are the dates of the major reports that I'm watching, specifically the Mag 8. I'm throwing Netflix into that group and some other randos that I'm watching here for earnings. I want to talk about some of the key things you want to pay attention to in these reports, in the earnings calls that are going to give us direction in terms of where we are headed. So let's talk about the big banks and why their earnings reports matter right now. The banks have to guess what's coming next. Will tariffs cause a slowdown, or will the economy keep growing? When you hear banks talk about their forecasts on earnings calls, listen closely for what they say about tariffs and trades, because it's going to tell us if they expect more cautious borrowing or if they're confident things will improve. This can give us big clues about the health of the economy and what to expect in the markets ahead. Next up, we have the tech giants like Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, and these are the companies racing to lead AI and cloud computing, which generate massive profits. We know that. But here's a twist. Tariffs on imported tech components can raise their costs, and trade tensions can slow down global demand. So we need to be aware of that. When these companies are reporting, pay attention to how they talk about tariffs and supply chains. Are costs rising, or are they finding ways around it? And listen for their forecasts. Are they expecting more spending on AI and cloud from businesses despite the uncertain trade environment? Their answers can help us understand if technology growth will keep powering the market or if tariffs might slow it down. Finally, when we look at these companies that depend on everyday shoppers, like Amazon, Meta, tariffs can raise prices on goods. And this makes shoppers more cautious about spending. When these companies report, they'll tell us if people are still buying as much or if they're cutting back. They also forecast how tariffs and trade policies might impact their costs and prices in the coming months if they expect tariffs to stick around or get worse. And they might warn about slower sales or higher expenses. We want to watch what they say so we have a snapshot of how consumers are feeling, and that's going to help us predict if the economy will keep growing or slow down. Most importantly, we're going to get some real-time data about how tariffs have impacted these companies since they were first announced in early spring. Has there been any impact? And let's see if these big shot CEOs address that in their earnings calls, and if that lets us read the tea leaves about where so let's take a look at it. The big Q2 earnings reports that I'm going to be watching, and it all starts with the big banks. They're going to kick off on July 15th. You can see that I have them listed here. Q2 earnings reports, these are the ones that I'm watching and that you should be paying attention to as well. And it starts with the big banks for the reasons I mentioned at the outset of this video. And it begins on July 15th. In the pre-market, we're going to have JP Morgan Chase, JPM, Citigroup, ticker symbol C. We're also going to have Wells Fargo. They are all going to be reporting, bam, pre-market. And so Tuesday of next week is going to be pretty live in terms of direction. And so we want to make sure that we have these marked on our calendar. We're paying attention to what's being shared in the conferences. We're paying attention to what the revenue is, what the forecast is, because it's going to tell us a lot. And then the very next day, we're going to get Bank of America reporting, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. That's all going to be pre-market. And again, it's going to give us insight into the health of the banking industry, what they're seeing lending looking like with their consumers, and that will set the tone for where we go from here. And the last few times that banks have reported, we've seen nice solid moves. Really, financials have been strong. So let's see if we get a continuation of that. And then we get into the Mag 8, some people call it. They throw Netflix in there. This is Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, Nvidia, and Netflix, like I said. And this is where you really get those big, strong moves, 20, 30, $40 to the upside, to the downside. And this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, I will point this out. Sometimes the dates indicated on TradingView are off. One of the dates that I can't pinpoint because I'm seeing the 22nd and the 31st is for Apple. More than likely, they won't be reporting until the 31st of July. But I try to cross-reference it with Grok and ChatGPT, and they both came back with the 22nd. But regardless, we want to pay attention to Apple. Apple has been a laggard here recently. It hasn't had a solid earnings report the last 3 times it is reported. So it is due for a move. Keep an eye on Apple. And then we look at some of the others here. Microsoft had a strong move back in May, and that's really launched it up into its new all-time high. Let's see if we get continuation there. They are to report on the 23rd of July. And then you have Google, who will be reporting the day after. We're going to see what they have to share. Amazon's going to be the 25th, so the day after that, followed by Meta. So that 25th, July 25th, will be a big day because you'll have both Amazon and Meta reporting at the same time. And we should see some fireworks from that. And then you have Tesla, who has been just beat up pretty significantly here recently. The tension between Trump and Musk starting his own political party, the America Party, that discouraging investors because it's drawing his attention away from his businesses. How much is that going to put pressure downward on the stock? So let's see if this time around we get a dump. So that's going to be on the 29th. And then, oh yeah, Netflix, I completely skipped over this. They're down here at the bottom because they have to add them in because they aren't necessarily considered an OG of the Mag 7, but they're going to be reporting on the 17th. And that is going to be right after the big banks report. Positive earnings for Netflix will drive us higher, or the reverse is true. If we see some negativity, some negative forecasting, we'll see some downwards pressure. And then Nvidia won't come until later in August. It feels like they just reported and they had that move higher the last time that they shared their earnings. So we'll see what happens this time on the 27th. And then finally, I have a couple randos here that I'm watching, one being United Health Group, UNH, and that thing has fallen so hard. A lot of people bought it when it dropped and are in this one. This will be a fun earnings report to watch because you have so many people counting on this one moving higher. It does look a little bit like a bear flag on the chart, so we'll see what's going to happen there. So that's going to be on the 29th. Super Microcomputer is one that I like to watch just because it's not a big mover on earnings, but it is volatile. It almost has a cult following where people are trying to pump it up. So I want to see if maybe, just maybe this time around, they get a push. That'll be August 5th. And then the Trade Desk is another one that to me looks very intriguing, finally being above that 100 simple moving average. It did have a big gap up the previous time it reported. Before that, huge gap down. So we'll see what it's going to be this time. Is it going to gap up, fill the gap from the gap down in the early part of winter, or is it just going to chop sideways? So these are the companies that I'm really watching, but most importantly, the big banks are going to set the tone for how this thing is going to play out, where we're headed. And then it's all about the Mag 8, starting with Netflix. And it's really going to set the tone for where we go here from July into the fall. And remember, August typically starts the weaker part of the year, August through October. And then November, things really pick up. A lot of people actually start buying in October. And then in December, we're talking Santa Claus rally. Can you believe that? Did I just say Santa Claus in July? But we see how fast this year has moved so far. We're at the midpoint. This is going to be a fun one. Mark your calendars, July 15th with the big banks. All right, so there you have it. You're ready to go for Q2 earnings. Again, the big banks are going to get this party started.
What will they have to say? What are their forecasts? Then we get the Mag 8. We're going to kick that off with Netflix, and this is going to be so much fun. And stay tuned to the channel because I will have tons of earnings previews coming. Smash that subscribe button. I will see you back here for the next video. Make it a great day, everyone.